Welcome to Rising Tide Startups, where today's most exciting solopreneurs share their startup stories. They also deliver tangible strategies that they would implement personally if starting their business over today. Each episode is a startup masterclass. Make sure you take notes. Take it away, Kevin.
This is Kevin Pruitt with another episode of Rising Tide Startups, and my special guest today is Julia McCoy. Julia, thanks for joining us all the way from Texas.
Thank you so much, Kevin. So great to be here.
I am, we were chatting just a little bit off camera or before we hit the record button. And I said there were so many tangents that we could chase today. But before we jump into that, I would like you to share a little bit about you and family background, education, experience, just kind of a quick summary just to lay the groundwork for who is Julia McCoy.
Let's do it. Well, let's see. So I run several businesses. One is the Content Hacker, and the other is Express Writers. Express Writers is the company I started. It'll be 10 years this May 2021. And I started that when I was a college dropout living in my father's fundamentalist cult. So it was a passion-led path for me. My whole life really has been a testament to what God can do and walking in your passion and what you're meant to do in life and letting your talents align with your career. And for me, that did not look like going to college. I failed college twice, actually. Was going to get an RN degree, took the semester twice and failed both times. But, I think that had something to do with how I was growing up, which was in a cult, which was very oppressive, abusive, legalistic. So, you can't really function that well in that environment. But at 19, I started Express Writers, and I really didn't think it would make it more than a year. So it's amazing to me to see where we are today. We're this company that provides almost 100 jobs. And now I teach people through the Content Hacker how to do content better. And I have 3 books out. My 4th one is coming out this February. It may be already out when you launch this, depending. So February of 2021. Skip the Degree, Save the Tuition is my 4th book coming out.
Wow. I am anxious to take a look at that because that's such a hot topic right now. I mean, the whole idea of hacking your education or uncollege or however you want to phrase that. I mean, unlearn, absolutely. And unschooling. So it's really an interesting topic, but I'm anxious. Let's walk back to when you're 19. Had you gotten out of the cult by that time, or did you start the business while you were still there?
I started it while I was still there. So I was still in the cult, and it was a light bulb moment. Like, there's no better way to describe it. I was going through college, failing my second time through. And one morning I woke up and it was like a light bulb hit me. Why don't you go find out what you like to do and see if you can make money doing it? So I acted on that. Like, that day, I was 19, it was a random weekday morning, and went on my computer and just started researching how to make money online writing. And back then, the market was kind of monopolized by Upwork, which back then was called Odesk.
Yep.
And there was a lot of like non-native English writers there. So I definitely had a leg up. There was still a lot of competition, but I would say a lot less than what we have today, which content has evolved so much. It's wild.
So I'm anxious to know. I mean, as I think as listeners are going to listen and say, wow, she actually does like a copy editing service or a copywriting service. She doesn't have a college degree. She started this when she was 19. And that's not, there's some math problems going on there in their mind right now. So tell me, I mean, the average, senior in high school or whatever is probably not prepared to jump in and make money, in a copy world. So was that something you really excelled at, or did you grow into that? Walk us through that process.
Yes, that's a really good question. So my journey definitely goes back to, I remember one of my earliest memories is reading and writing. When I was like 7, I was writing. And by the age of 12, I had written a 200-page book.
Wow.
And I think it helped. I've since studied this objectively since leaving. Living in trauma is never a good thing. But the outcome of that was it kind of gave me a way to focus on my passion as an outlet, because it was the only outlet. It was literally a lifeline for me to write, read, my life was like best lived through stories. And I've since come to know like J.K. Rowling, Harry Potter emerged in one of the darkest periods of her life. She had lost almost everything. And that story is true for so many people. And so I think that trauma does give you this insane perspective that maybe a lot of people miss, where you can look through all the shadows and see what you're good at. And that becomes your lifeline, and you just go to it because it's all you have. And so for me, that was writing. And whenever I jumped in at 19 years old, I was really motivated to teach myself because I loved it. So every day I was up at 4 a.m. learning how to write, teaching myself just through getting gigs. So I would take a gig, I would start writing, the client would tell me what was wrong, I would revise it, and then I would take the next gig and apply what I learned to that next gig. And little did I know that was like a trade-based education
Wow.
that I went through in, an accelerated period of 3 months. And by the time 3 months came, I was a pretty good content writer. So it's crazy if you follow the path of just building your own skills and you practice, practice, practice. And then, since then I've leveled up, and that looks like investing in coaching and kind of going to that next level. You can really get far just going down that path.
Right. I mean, it sounded like to me that nothing's wasted, kind of in God's economy leading up to that point. So, even the most oppressive point you were in, it was still, I mean, like if there was any redemptive nature to that, it was the fact that it was leading you to, growing a skill that you could actually use to make money later. And
Yeah.
I think I was listening to maybe another interview that you did where you talked about you actually bought a car through this, and the car was instrumental in helping you get out of that situation. Was that true?
Yes, I did. So I was really scrappy. I guess my mind was always maybe the entrepreneurial gene. I
Hey,
don't
you're
know
a
if that's
teenage girl getting up at 4 a.m. on your own. I'd say
probably
scrappy is a light use. So that, I mean, yeah, we need some a
true.
little more strength there. So that's right.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So, that drive was just, it came from, following my passion and going down that path. So you were saying at 19, what was the question
The
again? Sorry.
car. Yeah.
The
No,
car,
I
the car.
interrupted you. Sorry, I knocked you off your train of thought there. Yeah.
Oh, it's okay. Yes. So I had been working writing while going through college for about, I think it was like 6 to 8 months. And I was able to build up an income of about 2,500, 33,000 a month, which was like, you have to understand, I grew up in a family of four, and we lived on $400 a month. Like we were
Mm.
just, we were poverty level. In fact, we were below it. We didn't buy clothes. Like we looked for, sometimes we were looking in trash bags. So for me to be able to make that in a matter of months, just learning the skill was unheard of. And I really learned how to save. From an early age, I watched my parents never spend money. So that kind of got embedded in me, was to just save, save, save. So in a matter of months, I had enough saved up to buy a secondhand car. It was almost brand new. It was actually the last make and model of that year, and they were trying to sell it. So they sold it for $7,000. So I got like pretty much a brand new car for $7,000, but it didn't have electric windows. So it was like the manual, you're cranking your window up.
Yeah.
But
Yes,
it
kids,
was
you used to have to do that.
like, what is that?
That's right.
So I was able to buy that car and get that. And my parents let me buy it, to my surprise, because I said yes to them to going back to college that fall and trying. That would have been my third time trying college. So that was like the only reason they let me buy it, was I agreed to go back to college. It's crazy how sometimes that pressure comes from parents, which is,
Hmm.
just so crazy. That wasn't my passion at all. But I had it before I escaped the cult, and it was definitely, without that financial stream or that car, like I was locked there because we weren't allowed to go anywhere. It was a very closed environment.
So kind of walk us that. I don't want to dive too deep in this. I don't want to dredge up any bad memories, but so you literally in the middle of the night, you get up, you get your stuff together. It's kind of like, one of these made for TV shows where you literally are sneaking out the window and you're running down the street because you
Yep.
parked the car a block away, so they wouldn't see it and they wouldn't hear
Mhm.
the engine start. And so
Yeah.
where were you going?
Yeah. So
Anywhere away?
that was my initial thought. And then I was like, I need a plan because I already like started a business, saw the, bad side effects of not planning. So I was like, we need a plan. So I took my older sister with me. She was a totally different personality than me. She didn't really want to ever start anything herself, but she was my motivation whenever I said, let's get out of here. And she kept me strong. She was like, we're doing it. And I was 21 when I made that decision, and she was 24, 23. So we both got out and used my car, just like you said, parked it a street over so they couldn't hear it. And then we left letters behind just telling them like, this is not the life we want to live. And we had a wake up call that year when I turned 21 for my birthday. The letter I got was from my dad saying, your life isn't worth living. And he was basically just listing all the sins that he thought he called sins, like wearing the color red was a sin. So the word sin is up for debate there.
Yeah.
So he made this list, and that was the reason why he considered us complete failures at 21. And as tough as that letter was to get, it was also my wake up call,
Mhm.
because I thought, okay, well, if he really doesn't care if I lived, why am I still here? And he didn't mean it to be the wake up call. He thought it would break me and make me his slave, for life to his church. But it did the opposite. It really woke me up. So
Mhm.
that fall, that was 2012, I was 21. I made a plan, and that plan was to go meet someone that I had just met online in person. And that person turned out to be my husband, who I married 3 months after escaping. So I drove straight from Pennsylvania right to Missouri. I think you said you're from Missouri. So that's
I
where my
am, yeah.
husband lived. Yeah, drove 900 miles. And that's what I did. We went to someone's house to sleep that night. One of the first persons we told what life was really like. And she knew dad. So it was really a gamble. I was not sure how that was going to go, but it went well. She let us borrow her house that night. And then I made that drive, went straight to Missouri. And the person that I met online didn't turn out to be creepy. That could have gone so bad, like in
Yeah.
hindsight.
Yeah.
It really could have
But
gone
you did have your
terribly.
sister with you though, maybe right at the time, or had you gone on? Were you on your own at this time?
Yeah, whenever I went to Missouri, I was completely on my own. So
Wow.
my sister stayed in Pennsylvania, and I think she finally moved to West Virginia, which is pretty much the same,
Yeah.
but she stayed in the area.
So where in Missouri did you end up that first day?
So I was in Springfield, Missouri. And yeah, I landed at Josh's front door. We had met online. He hired me to write for him through Upwork, which was Odesk. And it was just an immediate connection. And it was like, now looking back, I know it was meant to be, even though I didn't know it at the time. Because it was just like, the sound of his voice, the words he was saying, like, this is someone I can trust. And I just knew it, like that light bulb moment again.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I landed there at Springfield, Missouri. I think it was 11:55 p.m. at night because the drive took so long. And he was the complete opposite of my dad. Like, he really, really cared. And I saw that whenever he made me dinner. And that was something like my dad had never done in, gosh, 15 plus years of marriage, because that was only her job. So, that was like the first interaction I had with him. And I was like, wow, this is completely different than what I grew up with.
You're gonna find this amusing, but actually that's my hometown. So where you
Wow.
landed was the place I've lived for 15 years of my life. Went to university there, met my wife there.
Wow.
Yeah, that's home.
Small
So
world.
yeah, you landed in a good place. That's,
Yes. It
yeah,
was a good city. I have good memories.
yeah, it's certainly it's not quite Texas, but it's close
Yes.
enough. So well, I'm anxious to hear kind of the growth. So you had this business rolling, it was generating, a certain amount of money a month, but what was kind of the next stage? I mean, that where you really saw, like, it's kind of that hockey stick, upward and to the right growth, where you saw a real shift and you thought, wow, this is really starting to generate some real money.
Yes. So we had consistent growth. Well, I call it consistent, but it was really 200% growth the following 3 years, after that year I left. And it was definitely for me, just leaving my dad's house for one. I know my business would never have made it. like they were giving me business advice. And one of the tips they told me to do was to set my profit margins at 10%. So I was only making 10% and paying everyone else 90. And, you know, the first payroll, you learn pretty quick, you can't pay your bills
Yeah,
on that
exactly.
model. So, you know, I couldn't have lived there and my business survived. So getting out was definitely the catalyst to going from, you know, $30,000 a month to 100,000, then 200,000. And then in a few years, 600,000, and then just continued to grow. And then on top of that, this person that I just, you know, God placed me with, Josh, he has become my business partner. So he always, we give each other advice, and his advice is really solid and practical. So he has told me, you know, to like stop sending PayPal invoices and use a software. And
Mm,
so little things like that, I
yep.
had no clue how to manage that. He really stepped in and gave me some guidance that I really needed back then. All this, it's almost like the little things really matter. That's what added up, you know, to
Hmm.
our success, is just being consistent and consistently doing it better the next day, even if it's by 1%.
Do you remember that moment that I mean, there's a book that talks that it's called the E Myth. Do you remember that moment where you stopped working in your business and you started working on it?
Yes. Yes, I do. And it's funny you say eMyth, because we actually called that company. There's a coaching company associated with eMyth, and we called them and just to get some advice, because, you know, it was a very well-known book, especially I think it was like 2016, 15 back then. Like that was the book everyone was talking about. So we called that company, and they were like, you know, Julia, how would you feel about delegating all of the tasks that you currently do? And at first it was a lot of fear. I was like, really? I have to give that to someone else? You know, so that was my immediate reaction. And then I've realized since, like, you can't succeed without delegation. You
Yeah.
can't scale,
Yeah.
you can't grow. And I look at it now as a partnership. You know, if we partner with the right people that really care, we're going to hit next level together.
So how do you decide that? I mean, as somebody like I'm a little bit like you, I'm probably prone to shy away from delegation because I think, you know, I want to do this myself. I'll do it like I want it done. Not necessarily it's better, but I'll do it like I want it done, you know, and I don't want to have to take the time to teach somebody else to do it and then maybe check up on them, make sure they're doing it. So how did you kind of make that shift? Because that's a pretty substantial shift in, you know, personality, management style, whatever you want to call it.
Yes. I think it's just a mindset shift. You know, once I realized, okay, I have this fear of letting go of something that I know I need to let go of to hit growth and get like time freedom back, all the things I wasn't experiencing, then it was like, okay, it's on. And, you know, it's just like another light bulb turned on. And then it was just a matter of finding the right people. And
Yeah.
that still today is, you know, one of the hardest pieces of the puzzle, is like continuing to find really good people that are like your needle in a haystack. And it is like that. Like we will go through hundreds of people to find one writer and or a project manager, whatever it is. So it's just knowing that, like, you won't, the first person you run into likely won't be the right partner. So learning that the hard way, that was definitely a good lesson for me.
So do you tend to onboard people like on a part-time basis and kind of give them a track record, or you know, give them some assignments initially and see how well they do with that, and they kind of grow into a full-time role with you? Or is this like, you know, we're actually scaled up so much now that we actually have to hire, you know, full-time positions at, you know, from the very beginning? Or is it kind of a mix?
Yeah, so we set it up on to be completely contractor based, and
Mm-hmm.
that still has worked out really good for us. So we let our contractors kind of set their own, I guess, hour or workload whenever it comes to the majority of the task. So like writing, editing, we really let them set their own schedule. If they're that person that like passed our test, did really good, so we're like, you can write as little, edit as little or as much as you want. And then we look for core team leaders, like our project manager, our client person, our content manager. And those people are definitely full time. You know, we kind of want the monopoly of their attention. We set the stage for that and pay well. So that structure has worked out really, really good for us.
Have you used university students, and I mean as contractors as well, and then maybe once they graduate they would maybe take on a team leader role or a full-time role?
Yes, we've worked with a few graduates, but what we find is the majority of them aren't able to pass our writing test or any of our other interviews
You mean
because they're
like the
really,
19-year-old I'm talking about that that,
yes,
that started the
right.
business?
Yeah. We're like, yes, go back and, learn, go to Upwork for a little bit. No. But what we do instead now is we kind of send them to my courses. And we're like, if you're willing to invest in whatever lack we see in their skill set, like if it's SEO writing, I have a course on that. So we point them to that. And if they invest and come back, they're often ready for paying
Hmm.
work.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of a magical, I guess, solution you could say we've kind of figured out because we've sent them to other courses. We've tried everything. And that's why I finally created courses, because I was like, we have to solve this market need where people are coming in and they don't know how to craft online content.
Mm.
And we want people out of the box that are ready to go so we can trust them with paying work right away. So that kind of solved that need. And recently, someone who went through my content strategy course, she's very young, just graduated. She was able to take on, I think, 3 different roles at Express Writers because of how well she accelerated her skills.
You can also kind of tell, their commitment level. If they're willing to invest in the
Yes.
course itself, then they're probably, are going to, be committed to whatever task you give them as well, and not just kind of drop the ball on their end. But so walk me through the kind of a typical day right now that you've kind of been e-mythed as a verb, so what does a typical day in the life of Julia McCoy look like?
Yeah. So I
Wake
definitely,
up 5 a.m., got kids in bed with us. That's right.
yeah, it definitely doesn't look like 4 a.m. anymore. That was just too rigorous. But I definitely like to get up early. And the only time I get off track really is the holidays where, we'll sleep in a little bit. But early morning, and then I just start with a simple routine of meditation, clearing my mind. I find that if I start my day really well with just a simple routine where like the phone is put away, distractions are off, and I'm centering myself, grounding myself, I'll read the Bible, meditate. If I start from that place, like the difference of being reactive versus proactive
Mm,
shifts so
yep.
much. And it's like if I start my day looking at my phone and that's all I did for the entire morning, then it's like everything that comes my way, I'll be reactive to it. And it's almost like I think I've researched this and there's definitely some science attached to it. The way you prepare your brain affects the rest of your day. So starting there is really good. And that's how I start my day. And then I dive into the heaviest tasks, usually like book writing, managing the team, planning our next growth steps. I'll dive into that right away, not schedule any meetings until like afternoon, noon,
Hmm.
1 p.m. after. And that really helps me just make the most of my morning and
Yeah.
get like what would be the hardest task done.
Yeah, I think that the way you've structured your day is wise, and it sounds like to me that you may even be more productive first thing in the morning, and or
Yeah,
maybe more clear minded, I guess. First thing in the
definitely.
morning. I certainly am. I mean, that's that from say 6:30 a.m. till like 10 in the morning is probably prime time. And
Yeah,
then 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it's like
forget
almost,
it.
yeah, deadpan. So there's not bringing much to the table there. So yeah, for sure. And I understand you kind of throw in some chickens every now and then, and you got a little stuff around the ranch there in Texas that you kind of piddle with from time to time, and you
Yes.
got your little mini farm store going and spread, sharing things with your neighbors. So it sounds like to me that you're a classic underachiever. You know, you
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 nailed
you
it.
may you may struggle with laziness, and we may need to talk about that.
I
So
may.
yeah, you sleep about 3 hours a night if you're lucky. So yeah. So tell me how you've had to adjust or pivot. I know the work's online for the most part, but how have you seen a change in your business as a result of COVID and just maybe impacting your clients?
Yes. Yeah, it's funny because we didn't really feel the effect till August. Like we were going good for a few months, and I was like, wow, we've only had like a 10% drop. And then August, like 50% of our income was gone in one
Mm,
month over at Express Writers. And the reason was a lot of our top retainers, they had brick and mortars that they were doing content marketing for, and those brick and mortars had to lay them off because they had to shut down.
mm,
So we got laid off as almost the third party involved there. So we definitely had to do some work picking ourselves back up. And it was just kind of tapping into new connections and thinking of niches that were still succeeding, like legal, chiropractor. Those niches were still doing really, really well, if not
hmm.
better. So we saw a lot of clients in those areas need more content. And then we just started changing our own content calendar to talk about, what's trending right now for you to publish on. What do your audience, what does your readers care about? And there's definitely a big shift that happened for a lot of industries. I think in March, search traffic went from 3.6 billion searches per day to 6 billion searches per day
Wow.
over 1 week. And so, like, the inflation of consumption escalated so
Hmm.
much.
Yeah.
And that 6 billion number has only increased. I track it on Internet Live Stats, like a data nerd, almost every day. And I'm like, that number is past 6 million. And we're in January of 2021. And, that's going on almost 12 months pretty soon. So I think the opportunity is massive for brands that are looking to step in front of their audience that is scrolling now that so many people have gotten online.
Yeah.
So we're seeing the opportunity. And my second brand, the Content Hacker, actually doubled last year. So, we're not $1 million business there yet, but we saw a lot more people need education and look for ways to build their own skills. Like maybe they didn't need us to write content, but they really needed to learn how to do it. So, selling consulting, education, that has become a way hotter market now because people are like, how do I do this? I'm in this, new world. Maybe they got laid off
Right.
or their employer sent them home and they have to learn all these new apps and do it themselves in their home environment.
Yep.
So it's really changed. And I think that'll continue to change and impact our economy. That's not going to go away.
No, there's not kind of a post-COVID recovery back to pre-COVID times. I mean,
Right.
we're
No
certainly
way.
in a new world, Um, kind of define the difference between express writers and content hackers.
Yes. So Express Writers, we write content at scale for small to medium sized businesses. We do blogging, website content. Sometimes we'll do like 50 we had an airport come in before COVID that needed content for like 100 different destinations. So we did 100 blog posts to target those locations.
That's
So
where your
we're really
50% drop happened
good.
in that
Right.
one airport. That's right.
Right. That was actually like 4 or 5 years ago. But that's what we're really good at, is doing like a lot of content without any drop in quality.
Mhm.
And we have an e-commerce platform there so clients can actually go and order content themselves. And we're kind of working on all of that. So like new iterations of our custom developed e-commerce platform, we're still planning on getting out more iterations of that. We just had our major e-commerce platform relaunch last October. So that was a big launch for us. And Content Hacker is completely just education based. So it's like,
Okay.
the meaning of Content Hacker is how to grow through content in a growth hacking mindset. And growth hacking is all about kind of throwing traditional marketing out the door in favor of what really works today,
Hmm.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
So that's my perspective with content is not set and forget. It's not something where you can just go on a platform, post something and expect clients. Like I wish that was
Right.
years
Right.
ago. Not today,
Yeah.
not anymore. So that's why I'm teaching that now, Content Hacker.
So do you work with SEO as well, like individually, or are you doing SEO through content itself?
Yes, we're doing it completely through content itself. So we do a lot of the reason clients hire us at Express Writers is to get more SEO rankings,
Hmm.
but we have a fully content based approach.
I mean, I've interviewed a number of people that are kind of in the digital space, with digital marketing space or whatever, and whether they're doing ad based or whether it's, just trying to hack the system or whether they're trying to do it through content. It's just really interesting to hear the different approaches and the different theories of how
Mm.
this, and actually all of them work at some level, with the,
Yes.
and it's interesting that I think content is a little more insulated from, say, algorithm changes than say, just a straight, maybe SEO approach or something like that, or trying to hack it, through backlinks or something like that. But talk a little bit about the idea of, like speak to our audience who's maybe they have something that has just started to take, getting some momentum here. What are the things they need to be cognizant of, as kind of pre-growth stage, that you wish you would have known when your company's really started taking off, maybe some lessons learned, mistakes made, that type of thing.
Yes. I would say, don't set your growth goals to happen too quickly. For us, we kind of we've done that a few times. Launch something preliminary, whether it was a service, a feature, and we just learned we couldn't support that. And so that would be one of the biggest lessons: is don't launch too quickly. And I would just also add to keep at it, whatever you're doing, just be consistent. That
Mhm.
is one of the secret keys, really, is those who are persistent and stay at it. They're the ones that win in the end. And sometimes it's just a matter of keeping your head in the game long enough, not letting things affect you to where you don't give up too quickly.
Well, it has been really fun to kind of, we've been connected on Facebook a little bit, for the last few months or whatever. It's just been fun to kind of see your, just the content you even produce through that medium, and
Oh,
and
thanks.
the idea of just all the different things you're involved in. I mean, we haven't even scratched the surface on the things that you've probably done, and or
There's a lot.
even planning, to do in the next year or so. But where online is the best place that people can find you, and just kind of, follow your story, and actually, I mean, you produce so many things, even content wise, through social media, so it's actually a learning tool for them as well.
Yes, yes, I've been doing that more. Is just turning my social media platforms into a way to share things that really add value. But you can find me at contenthacker.com, expresswriters.com, and follow me on Instagram, Fem Entrepreneur, Twitter at Julia E. McCoy, and then of course Facebook. I love to connect on Facebook as well. I'm always sharing. You'll hear some opinions, so FYI, on Facebook, it's the only place where I'm like, I share, every side of me. I try to keep the other platforms as pro. I mean, it's still real content, but as pro as possible, professional. Um, but yeah, I welcome new connections all the time. And then my books, you can find those on Amazon under Julia McCoy, and you can follow me. My goal is to, if you follow my Amazon author page, my goal is to launch a book every, gosh, I said 2 years, but I actually might make it every year for the
Mm,
foreseeable future.
wow.
So, and I've already started my 5th book. So as of the time of talking this podcast, actually, this was the day I outlined it. So
You
it'll
know any
happen.
good ghostwriters that could help you write your book?
Oh, let me think. Express writers.
Well, Julia, it has been a true pleasure just to catch up with you, and I appreciate you taking the time and just sharing your story, and just, I mean, the ups and downs of not just the business side of things, but life, and as it happened, and it has really been, you've taken us on quite a journey today, and just thank you for really just playing your part in helping all boats rise in a rising tide. Julia, have a great day.
Thank you so much, Kevin. You too.
Appreciate it.
Another episode in the books. We hope you heard some great takeaways. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a 5-star review on iTunes and YouTube. As always, thanks for listening to Rising Tide.